Hey everybody, Jamie here from the Keeping It Real group powered by the one and only Crossroads Realty. Big day today. This is our brand new studio, our first episode of Keeping It Real with Jamie. And I have a power group in here today, I'll say. A lot of personality and a lot of real estate knowledge. I'm sitting here. I'm honored to have Mark Kotzas here, George Shenewolf, and Chris Stopero. Now, normally, if I'm in a closed room with this amount of power, I'm usually in trouble, getting yelled at. But today we're not. We're opening up our new studio. Today's our first broadcast, and in our new office. Mark, we're going to start with you. Is this everything that you thought it was going to be in the office here? I mean, this is just an incredible place to work. You know, the agents love it here. The feedback that I always get. Is this everything you dreamed of?
The new office came out beautifully, and I want to thank Chris, who spearheaded this and basically GC'd the job. The job was more complicated than we thought because we're on a slab here, so we ended up having to, drill through concrete and stuff to get lines in. But so I've been affiliated with this building since it was built, and we've been handling the leasing on this building. So I had a relationship here for a long time. You guys have all heard the story. We've been involved with this particular piece of property here since the 70s, when we built the condos on the other side and then flipped the land and then sold this parcel to the current the guy that sold it to us. So yeah, it's really nice to be here every day. I have to tell you, I was hesitant on the move because I was sort of burrowed into the old office for many years, but it's really a great place to come to work, and it's really nice. You know, when I walk over and I see a dozen agents working over there and collaborating. Yeah. We went from an old school office where everybody had private rooms and you didn't know who was in the building, and now it feels really good to go over there and see all of you, working together, sharing ideas, networking. I couldn't be happier.
Oh, glad. Yeah. Everybody is. It's just a great atmosphere out there. George, what's your thoughts on the same question?
Oh, absolutely. Better than I expected. I knew it was going to be good, but once we put the finishing touches on, it just makes it easier to have meetings with a nice open environment. As Mark said, agents are collaborating, they're talking, and we have a mixture of everything. We have private space, open space, and we have a wonderful view. It's great to come to work every day.
I'll say.
Yeah.
And Chris, I remember coming in here. I was privy to be able to come in here from the very beginning when you were still the studs. And this guy's up on the ladder running wire. He's got the drills going, and I was pretty impressed with that. What are your thoughts? Is it what you thought it would be?
Yeah, the end goal was to create an environment, and I'll let Mark speak to this a little bit, but everything changed since COVID, right? He would know better than I would, but 20 years ago, you'd have 25 agents in the building. They went to their little private offices. They didn't really interact with each other, and everything changed that, right? So we lost most people coming into the office at all, obviously, during COVID. So kind of rethinking the office environment was when they eventually come back post-COVID. You want an environment that's fun, engaging. People don't come to the office now just to do work, right? So you have Dotloop, you have all your remote softwares. So it's really creating an environment where there's more than just that. And in real estate, that comes down to collaboration, right? I think the best ideas that agents are going to get are from each other. So to Mark's point, when he walks out there and agents are talking to each other, sharing ideas, talking about listings, that's really where the value of the office space becomes. So creating an environment where we do have some private offices where agents can, hide away when they need to for a few minutes. But really that big room and getting everyone around the tables and sharing their days, their experiences, is where that value is. Beautiful kitchen and snacks and coffee machines.
Bougie bar.
We got the bougie bar.
Yeah.
It's great for our office meetings and parties here. We've moved some of our parties and top producer events even to in the office. So we have a gorgeous view. So it's really an environment that helps the agents foster a relationship with each other and build their business that way instead of again back into the old times of locking themselves in a room and working on paperwork.
Absolutely.
Having the admins available, and the corporate staff available to the whole, it's the Ocean County, regional office, but for the whole company now to be able to come in. Mark and I used to joke too, just the way the office used to work, in the old building was Mark was on I'll call it the middle floor, Kim was upstairs on the third floor and running finance, and I was down in the basement. So there'd be whole days where we never saw each other, even though we need to interact with each other all day long. So I think that's a big benefit now too. And we have some of our assistants and other office staff kind of right outside of our offices on the other side of the building. So again, same thing as what we're talking about with the agents. With us, it's fostering collaboration even amongst the corporate staff, right? So I'll overhear someone talking about something that I may have input or Mark may have input into a conversation, and it just allows us to really stay in communication with each other and make everything a little bit more efficient.
It's definitely true, everything you said, because I'm part of that out there. And when I'm in here and the other agents are in, everybody's bouncing stuff. George pops out of the office. We'll start talking about something. Also, Mark will come out and, make a little drink or something over there. And everybody is just, it's a whole different atmosphere. It's different, and it's different than anywhere I've ever been. I mean, just the way that agents interact with each other here is different. It's definitely different. And from what I hear from everybody out there, they love it. Yeah. It's a win-win situation. So all you agents out there, you need to be over here with us at Crossroads, because even our office meetings that we do, monthly meetings here, are incredible with the lunches afterwards. And every month it's a theme. We have Lori out there, working her butt off.
She's a big part of it.
And that is really cool. Like, we had the Christmas one, we had the Irish one for March. We had, every month it's different. Oktoberfest, that was awesome. Meanwhile, we're all doing it and looking at the water. So it's a huge thing here. It's definitely huge. I love it here, and from what I hear, everybody does. I've had a closing here already inside the conference room, which the people were like blown away. I'm trying to recruit an agent, and they come in and they see this place, and they're like, "Oh my God, this place is like unbelievable. Why wouldn't I be here?" Well, why wouldn't you? So you guys, you other agents that are watching this, you should come over here and talk to somebody in this room. It's definitely a good home for you. Well, we got a lot of stuff coming. The real estate market's definitely changed. I think everybody's pretty much settled in with the buyer's agreement now. Would you say that?
Yeah, it's getting better. There's still challenges every day. In this business, you have realtors that are of all different engagement levels, right? So agents that are doing this every day, I think, are way beyond that hurdle now and have settled into it. From a corporate perspective, we still struggle with, there may have been an agent that only does a deal or two a year, and they're still working through the process a little bit, right? So, staying on top of training, speaking broadly of the market, we're starting to see some of the pressures that we thought would have happened earlier with buyer's agency. So I think the idea of the buyer having, buyer's agent having to set their price point with the buyer, was almost not relevant in day one through, first few months, because everyone's just doing the same thing, right? So let's just use a 5% listing. People were giving out 2.5, keeping 2.5, and so you didn't really have to deal with the nuance of the buyer's agreement in the sense of the financial terms of it, although you had to do the paperwork. We're starting now to see that pressure change and put downward pressure on the buy side, where agents much more commonly now across the industry are, getting 4 on a listing and giving out 1, right? They're keeping 3 and giving out 1 or giving out 1.5. So it's becoming now where not only, do we have the paperwork side of buyer's agency, but we also have now the pricing difference inside of dealing with a buyer, where the buyer's agent now has to address that, right? So if they're only offering 1, that doesn't mean you should be working for 1.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, really.
It means we need to actually now look at the buyer's agency agreement and say, okay, well, where's the other, whatever your perceived value is, right? If you want to walk away with 2 or 2.5, where are we getting that money from? Are we negotiating in the deal? Is the buyer going to bring it to the table, et cetera, et cetera? Kind of the how it worked for the first 6 months to a year of just, it's being split and I'll take what I get from the seller. That's changing. And it's up to each individual buyer's agent to determine what that value is for them and address it. And it needs to be addressed, in the conversation, both with the buyer when the buyer's agency agreement's getting signed. We're seeing a lot of circumstances where an agent has 2.5 on a buyer's agency agreement, right? Then the buyer finds a house and they're offering 1, and the agent ends up just taking the 1, even though they have a legal document that would get them the 2.5, right? But that takes a little bit of a hard conversation. Like, it's one step to say, okay, Mr. Buyer, sign this document, agree to the 2.5. But now when they're making the offer and doing the contract, we have to have another conversation. I think that's where the disconnect's happening right now. Again, where are we coming up with this extra money? Do we want to lower the offer price and get the seller to bump that 1% up to 2.5? Or does the buyer want to come cash at the table? There's a bunch of different ways to do it, but making sure that that's happening at the time of contract, being written. And I think to some extent, the buyer's agency is actually done, and this is more of a philosophical conversation about what the intent of the law was. But clearly from the DOJ's perspective, where all this came from, was a desire to lower commission rates, right? That's what the federal government wanted to see across the industry, was lower commission rates down. And I think it's actually going to end up having the reverse effect. So imagine a situation where, a good listing agent goes in and gets the seller to pay 4, right? But they're not giving 2 and 2 now. They're taking 3 and giving 1. So the seller's still on the hook for 4. The list side agent's getting 3. They're happy. They're offering 1 out. Now you get an agent, we'll leave people nameless, but a couple killer agents out of this office that on the buy side is not going to work for less than 3 either. So she's going to get 2 paid for by the buyer, 1 from the seller, right? And now all of a sudden that 4% for the entire transaction may be 7%.
Wow, yeah.
Right? If you add the 2, seller's only paying 4, but maybe in the past they were paying 5. So artificially the seller side came down, but now the buyer's kicking in 3.
Yep.
So now it's 7, right? Could be 8, right? You could have 5 and 3 being pushed out between 2 good agents. And all of a sudden that same transaction that we were so upset, or the government was so upset that was charging 5 is now charging 7.
Wow.
So it's interesting how this plays out long term of, does the government step back in and go, hold on here, this isn't working the way we intended it to? But I do a lot of the deal processing and checking, kind of over every closed deal, and you're seeing both of those examples. You're seeing agents that are not yet comfortable with the process getting beat down, taking the 1.5 on the buy side and just taking it because that's what's being offered. And then conversely, you're seeing 2 good agents get together, and now the deal's costing 7%.
Wow.
So
great.
The spectrum is massive. It's really coming down to, and we talked about this yesterday in a meeting, getting those agents trained up that are on that bottom end of the spectrum, because that's all this is, right? It's a training conversation. Agents need to be comfortable with their own value, their own worth, and particularly, how do they explain this to the buyer? Because you still are, even 2 years later now, you're certainly still dealing with buyers that have no idea about this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They're like, well, I got to pay what? Right? So we're still there, even though for us it's, we've now done tons of transactions with it. For a long time, you're going to have buyers that, what's the average people, I think it's 6 or 7 years that a person stays in their home. So you could have 6 or 7 years from the time that agreement was signed where the average person still hasn't purchased a home. And still hasn't even really dealt with this or heard about it. So it's not going away, but there's still items left to deal with, particularly on the training front. You need a company that supports you, and we came up with a good training plan of identifying the agents that we can tell are struggling. They may not admit they're struggling, but we have the numbers, right? So we can tell which agents are having a little bit of problem with it, and getting them one-on-one with the managers. And
Well, that's what I was going to say. Next would be, now you're usually the first line. They come. You always go to your manager. Are you getting a lot of that, George? Or
So it's going to fall on training, and I think one of the things that happened with this change was, I think a lot of people felt that sellers were going to pay out 0, which it wasn't the case.
No, not at all.
I would say 95, if not higher percent, they're paying out on the buy side. And as Chris was saying, the first few months, it was kind of business as usual. Take a 5% deal, 2.5. It was kind of working that way. But now, listing agents are getting aggressive, and they're keeping a bulk of the commission, and rightfully so. But now we have to really train up on the buy side to have these conversations, because that's all it is. It's this whole business. It's how you have conversations with people and leading them to the right answer with information. So you have to have better conversations with your clients and say, look, I charge 3%. I'm going to get most of this, if not all, from the seller. So there's a good chance you won't have to pay me, but I can't control that. So, but this is what I charge. So it's now, we used to spend all our time on listing appointments and putting on a presentation. Well, you're sort of going to have to do that on the buy side. So it's changed from, yes, they were paying out, to now they're paying out a little, and it's up to the agent to collect the rest, which is fine. It's just, now we have to have different conversations with the agents so they can know how to speak with their clients.
Was this the same with commercial?
It's interestingly, it's sort of the same dialogue, but flip-flopped. So, and I don't want to talk about commission rates, but typically in corporate, let's talk about just corporate office leasing for a second, because there's a lot of different moving parts in commercial. We are seeing the tenant rep brokers, who often represent the Fortune 500 clients and the top clients, demanding the lion's share of the commission, because they're bringing a qualified Class A tenant to a building. So the listing agent is now having to negotiate an override with the landlord to accommodate the brokers bringing Class A tenants in. So it's the same conversation, but flip-flopped in commercial.
Wow.
So it's interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. Well, I learned something already in my first webcast. Chris, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, and that could switch to a similar dialogue like that in residential, right? It really just it's market dependent. So right now we're still seeing, even after all the craziness of the last couple of years, there's not a lot of inventory left still to this day, right?
Yeah.
So you're still in that situation where the listing, has a little bit more power, but that can change at any day. The whole market could change, and all of a sudden, if you have too much inventory and too much competition on the list side, you may get listing agents offering out 4%.
Yeah.
Because they need to get the thing. So, to Mark's point is that's the dynamic in commercial right now with those high-end Class A tenants. And that could happen with us too. So in 2 years from now or a year from now, we could be having a totally different conversation of the listing agents aren't able to retain enough.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
It's very much market dependent. But we've been in this weird no inventory market since pre-COVID now. So seemingly like it's
It's still
not
crazy.
changing
Yeah,
ever.
You don't remember this, but we still have a 30 to 45 days on market for our listing inventory here in our Ocean Monmouth marketplace. It wasn't that long ago that listings were sitting on the market for 6 or 8 months. We were taking year-long listings because it was taking 8 months, 10 months to get a listing sold. So I concur with Chris. That may flip-flop at some point in the future when the listing inventory has more equilibrium.
I'm seeing a lot of the waterfront homes are sitting longer. I'm
Inventory's
noticing that.
up on the
Yeah.
waterfronts. I
Yeah.
think the last time I checked, there was about a 5.5 month supply, just Ocean County waterfront, where Ocean County residential was a little bit over 2. So there's definitely a lot more inventory in the waterfront, and it's probably going to be some more coming out. It's spring market.
Yep.
So
And that is tied in, I also think, to like sort of a K-shaped economy that the high-end buyers are much more picky on what they're buying.
Yeah.
And they're paying cash. But the average home sale price in Ocean County now went from like $255 or something in 2019. We're at four and change, 415.
yeah.
Wow.
So we still have that affordability issue happening, and the lack of the trade-up buyer. Obviously we've talked about this on previous
Right.
conversations, that people that have a sub 3% mortgage are not in a hurry to get in a 6.5% mortgage and that's again with the dialogue that you're going to have with that you guys are going to have with your buyers and sellers, that we've had a little bit of a market switch from a seller's market to more of a buyer's market.
Yeah, it's starting.
And the inventory has increased, I want to say about 6% this year from last year. Not a huge amount, but we are seeing more inventory.
Well,
Yeah, I think last year we dipped as low as 1.8 month supply. It got really, really low, and now it's,
starting to come around.
and that's on average. I mean, certain towns are higher than
Yeah.
others. I mean, I think Tom's River was getting up close to 3 and stuff like that. So,
Well,
yeah.
well, we learned some more stuff today, and I'm keeping it real. I'm going to let you gentlemen go. I think we'll wrap it up. What a great great time I had with you guys. I learned something, and I really appreciate being here at this company. I really do. I always say it, and I always will. This is a great place to work, and any agents that are even thinking about it, just reach out to anybody in this room, and we can make it happen. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you,
I
Jamie.
appreciate you guys
Thank you,
coming
Jamie.
here. We'll do it again. We're doing more shows. I'm going to try to get on here once a month. But I appreciate it. Everybody, enjoy your day. And we're keeping it real in Tom's River.